tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Thank you for joining me with Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Narcan. Please get some Narcan. It saves lives. It's a tool in the toolbox. Please don't leave it in your car. Put it in your purse. Take it in and out every night if you can. We're not going to Narcan our way out of this, but this saves lives. My guest today is the Samaritans, Denise Panichis. Denise, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for asking me.
The Samaritans. What is the Samaritans?
Well, it's an organization that's been around since 1977, but we always need to educate a new generation of people, and our mission is suicide prevention education. That's the bottom line. With that, we do grief support, but education and our programs are there for the people of Rhode Island, and to know that they can reach out to an agency that will be non-judgmental. It's all about charity, and it's free.
Great. You know, since I've known you, it's a long time now, suicide has become prominent. I hate to say it, but it's become prominent. There's a couple of pieces of legislation at the State House this year, last year, and the year before, to try to put, and I'm not sure the correct wording on this, netting. Is it netting? What?
A safety barrier.
A safety barrier at the State House. And we come to the 20-yard line, and we can't get past the 20-yard line.
Exactly.
To bring the ball across the goal line, to get it done. You know, I've lost friends who have jumped off the bridge for whatever reason. What is the holdup? Is it just money? Or is it people that don't get it about suicide? I don't know. I kind of, you know, after I lost a couple of friends who jumped, you know, I kind of scratched my head when I listened to the testimony up at the State House. Well, you know, if you put that netting up, they're going to jump anywhere. They're going to find something, someplace else to do it. But that's not the case. There's a lot of people who park their cars at the top and jump. What's the issue?
All right, so let's take a step back for a minute. Nobody builds bridges, and certainly when they were built, thinking death was going to be one of the outcomes.
Right.
They probably should have, though, because it's not that it's uncommon around the world, but that's not what architects think about, and I'm sure at the time the public policy people, it wasn't a huge priority. But for me, now I've been at the Samaritans for the last 23 years, I think. I too now know people who have jumped from the bridges, plural. So what we're specifically talking about are those bridges over Narragansett Bay. Okay, so we're talking the Jamestown, the Pell, the Mount Hope, and the Sakonnet bridges. And believe it or not, this past September, I witnessed a near fatal jump off the Sakonnet Bridge. And I can talk the talk, I can walk the walk, but actually being there at that moment put a whole other perspective on it for me. The barriers on the bridges probably are thigh high for me. Nothing to prevent people from going over. Nothing that ever prevented anybody from going over. The other piece of it is that the people in the East Bay and in Washington County, Kent County, live with something that the rest of us don't live with, which is knowing individuals, families, neighbors, communities of people who have jumped from the bridges. That's something they live with that we don't live with.
Correct.
Suicide is usually kind of quiet. You don't hear about it. But when it's from a bridge, it's public. So I have a volunteer, Brian Ganley, who lives in Bristol. He's been bugging me for years to be part of it. And I know you've actually met Brian. And I just wasn't sure. And then the statistics started to come out from the CDC more information of proving that no, people don't go elsewhere, things that are going on in other parts of the world. The Golden Gate Bridge added netting, the Skyway Bridge in Florida. But right close to home, I had the Cape Cod bridges that I could learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called the Army Corps of Engineers. And it was actually Monica Dickens, who was one of the founders of the Samaritans in the United States, that pushed to put the barriers on the Sagamore and the Bourne Bridge. And at the time that I had talked to the manager of those two bridges, they had had none, and we're talking now in the last 5 or 6 years that I talked to them. I think they've had one that I know about. Doesn't mean there couldn't have been a few more. But the fact is they are very, very effective. And I started to realize, because I would travel over the bridge, I'm looking at the bridge, I'm talking to people. Here, I've heard criticism. Money is one issue, and that's a real issue. But I've heard it's about the view. You know, I've heard it, aesthetics. I've heard all kinds of things. It's about tourism, it's about historic preservation, it's about... Nothing has stopped people from moving to Cape Cod, vacationing in Cape Cod,
right.
Traveling under the bridges. That's obviously not it. And to be honest, if you're on the bridge, you shouldn't be looking at the water, you should be looking at the road ahead.
Right, right.
But we've all been over that bridge. It doesn't stop us from doing this. So they have found an effective way of dealing with it. So Brian had been bugging me, and then a woman named Melissa Carter came forward. She too had witnessed somebody on the Mount Hope Bridge. She and Brian got together. They started a movement called Bridging the Gap for Safety and Healing. By the time we're done, we pay attention, and you know, there was a petition that was started. I think it's over 8,000 people have signed the online petition. And then with the publicity, you know, we can do our part, but there are two people who have made the difference in this, how this is proceeding forward. And that's Senator Lou DePalma from the Newport Middletown area and Representative Joe Solomon from Warwick. Obviously, Senator DePalma knows people because he lives in that area. Representative Solomon lost a friend to the bridge. Mm-hmm. He gets it, and they stepped forward, and they are the ones that have really been the power behind making this happen. And so what they did is they were able to get, and unfortunately it's in pieces, but they were able to get money to do engineering studies first of the Jamestown and the Mount Hope. Second is the Pell and the Sakonnet. So I think it might be about $1.7 million that has been put together from two budgets. Now this year they've introduced each introduced another companion bills to go for the design, the manufacturing, and the installation. Now the studies that are being done, the engineering studies, are supposed to be out in May, April and May. The Bridge and Turnpike Authority is supposed to release the study. A company named Atkins that did the Skyway Bridge in Florida, they're the ones that are doing it. The next engineering study comes out next year. I mean, it's like piecemeal. It's not, all the time is not saving lives, and that's quite obvious because we know during the pandemic, and I actually have some information here, between 2021 and 2023, 5, 10, 15, 20, about approximately 20 more or less people jumped from the bridges.
Denise, I need to take
Yeah,
a break, but when we
please.
come back, I want to talk more about this because...
Yeah, we need to talk about the legislation
Yeah.
and what people can do to let their voices be heard.
Exactly. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni, with the Samaritans are in the house. We'll be right back after these messages.
Now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. The Samaritans are in the house. Denise Panichis. Welcome, Denise, and thank you for joining us today. You know, this is an issue here that's close to my heart. Close to my heart. So thank you for coming on today. But I want to talk a little bit more about the bridges. I want to talk about the bills a little bit. You know, personally, I don't like this piecemeal stuff. You know, let's make the sandwich, never mind putting one piece of bologna at a time in there. It needs to get done. It needs to get done quickly, because every month, every year, every day that we don't do this, it could be another individual who loses their life. So, guys at the State House, if you're watching, make the sandwich, stop the bologna, let's get it done.
Well, I appreciate it. What I'd like to do, if we can, I'd just
Sure.
like to tell everybody what the bill numbers are.
Sure.
Anybody who cares enough about this subject can send an email to the legislature, the Senate and House Finance Committee, in support of these bills. Senator Lou DePalma introduced S2969, and Representative Solomon introduced 7858. So this, again, the Senate side 2969, the House side 7858. You go online to the legislature's website, Senate Finance, House Finance, send a letter of support of these bills. It matters when people see someone other than
Right.
me and the public. You got to step up. You have to step up. If you care enough, you have to step up.
Because you'll never know. Could be your loved one that's next.
That's right. And, you know, we consider suicide a missed opportunity in prevention.
Mm-hmm.
There are three things we know about the truly suicidal. They are hopeless. They believe that no one cares if they live or die, and in the end, they think they're doing everybody a favor. I believe that these barriers will say to the public, we care about you. You're on the recovery side of things. You're on the treatment side. You've helped me identify treatment centers and things. But we have to stop it at the place where that is most symbolic and most public, and say enough is enough.
You know, the other thing too is, and I asked you to bring some commitments, not commitments, but numbers,
Yep.
to let the people know that are watching this show. This is a real issue. You know, where are we ranked?
So we rank, and I thought about this after you asked me that question. In Rhode Island, in fact, you know, there's most people have coverage, insurance coverage. Unfortunately, mental health is not always part of that coverage. We know that there's not enough care, that everybody's understaffed, you know, overworked and
Right.
understaffed. But we still rank, and according to the Center for Disease Control, we rank 43, I think, 43 out of 50 states. Hold on, let me just get the right page. The state is ranked 43rd out of 50 in the nation in suicide per 100,000 population. And we rank second lowest in New England. And I had to think about that for a minute. You know, that's saying that in spite of all the deaths, we do a really good job. And I want people to think broadly about what that actually means. Every recovery program that you put on this show, every one that you promote, every organization, all the community action agencies, all the community mental health centers, all the private practitioners, the hospitals, all the senior centers, all the community-based programming, that's all suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. All of it. If you think about, does anybody care about me? John, you've been a big volunteer in your own town. You know, you're out there promoting, that keeps people connected. Mm-hmm. The World Health Organization says the single biggest risk factor is the lack of connectedness. Well, you can connect them to medical care, you can connect them to mental health care, substance abuse care, but do they believe that people care about them? Mm. Getting the care is one thing, making them believe people care about them. You and all the community service you've done, I've done over our lifetime, we're always trying to make people believe that they belong somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think that accounts for where we rank, that there's a lot of it out there. But you and I talked about before the show began, how many people don't we know about? Mm. Was it an accident, a car accident? Was it an accident, or was it suicide? Is it underreported? How many opioid deaths? Are they accidents, or are they on purpose? Right. We're never going to get to the bottom of all of that, and we have so many different crises that are going on. whether it's economic, it's housing, and all of those things. That's where I believe all of the services that you have supported over the years, that I've supported, the legislature supported, the communities, the cities and towns do, they are all suicide prevention. You know, every CAP agent, every community action agency that helps somebody with housing or a job, that's suicide prevention.
Yep.
That lets them know somebody cares about them. On our website, SamaritansRI.org, I have pages dedicated to all 39 cities and towns. If you want to find out how not to be isolated, how to be connected, look on your city and town. They have all kinds of programs that can help you. And so whether you're a caregiver or you're the person who is, feels isolated and alone, there are things out there that can help. And shows like this convince people that it's okay to seek that help. We don't want to see anybody die.
No, you're 100% right, Denise. And one suicide, to me, is too many. There's enough programs, there's enough people who deal with suicide prevention. Besides you and your organization, me and my organization, there's a lot of people out there that care, that you had indicated. But it's just to the point where, and it's underreported.
Absolutely.
No one wants to put that statistic up on their website. No one wants to say in the community, hey, John Tassone took his own life the other day because of whatever.
Right, we're not going to go public, no?
Yeah, no one wants to go public with it, but it's happening.
Right.
And it's happening at a faster rate than we really realize. I want to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. I got to take a break so I can pay the bills.
I understand.
So you can come back. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassone, with the Samaritans and Denise Panichis. We'll be back right after these messages.
Now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassone Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassone. The Samaritans are in the house. Denise Panichis. Welcome, Denise, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
I want to talk a little bit about the ripple effect. I know you see the commercials on drunk drivers, but there is a ripple effect with suicide.
Absolutely, and that's one of the untold stories. We try to get it out there, but it like you said earlier, something people don't talk about. What we did talk about is how it impacts on West Bay, East Bay, South County, but what you don't hear are the stories of the first responders. You don't hear the stories about employers, employees, neighbors, families. The ripple out from one death goes on and on for years and years. And I think there's a reason, obviously, why people keep that pain private. It's like a scab that you got to keep pulling off the scab, and I understand that. But I think there's a story to be told about that ripple out effect. I personally know first responders who have almost gone over the Pell Bridge, trying to save a life and saving somebody, but at peril for themselves. First responders, and this is literally statewide, whether you're in an urban community, suburban, rural, it's a dangerous situation, and people need to know if there is an emergency, call 911 and ask for advice. Arthur Martins at 911 does a fantastic job. His staff do a great job. They know how to triage things. They are there to help connect the dots for people.
I have 30 seconds. I hate to interrupt you, but
okay.
you're having a fundraiser. Hurry up, tell me.
In October,
Yep.
we're going to cross the bridge to Hope at the Pell Bridge Run. It's an annual fundraiser. We have a great time, and we hope everybody will go to our website and learn more about it.
And support it.
And support it. Maybe we get a chance to come back and talk about it.
Here you go. Love to have you back. And thank you for coming on today. And thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you,
There's
John.
not many people that have a heart like yours.
Oh, thanks.
And 23 years doing this work, I commend you for that.
Thank you.
You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassone. The Samaritans, don't forget it. Donate. We'll see you next week.